What's up, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of the Cheeky Midweeky, where we are making strength and conditioning not boring anymore. And today, I am joined by somebody that I used to coach, somebody that I worked with, who also worked in the NFL, has transitioned from working in the NFL as a coach to now being an agent. Don Shumpert, you're going to love this episode. We talk about our time back at Iowa. We talk about what it's like to work in the NFL. And we talk about how to transition from coaching to being an agent. You're going to love this episode. Let's dive in. I can't say I coached you because I had no idea what I was doing way back when as such a young little pup. Former athlete that I got to work with who was a position coach in the NFL, now is an agent. He got to work alongside Buddy Morris. Don Shumpert, thank you for coming on, Shump. I am very excited as we talked off air. Thank you for being here, my man.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Coach. It seemed like yesterday.
It really does. Like, we hopped on and I'm like, man, I feel like I just saw you, but like, no, it's been quite some time.
What was the years you was at Iowa again?
I was there in the summer of 12, and then I got back in 13. So your senior year, I came back. I got hired actually during October. But I was working at Maryland, and Drew Wilson, it was me, Drew, and one other coach. And he's like, dude, could you just stay on until the end of the season because we don't have staff? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. Like, you've hired me. Sure. So I was along for the bowl game, and that was about it.
I know, man. 2013. How about that?
I know, we're almost like it's been 11 years, but yeah, it's crazy to think about. So
for sure.
Let's dive into, like, you were a position coach. Now you're an agent. Like, what made that interesting for you?
Yeah, I love coaching, and I'm going to still coach. I'm going to still train the youth. I'm going to do it on my own time. Coaching was great. You know, you was a strength and conditioning coach, so you know how demanding it can be. It's a very demanding job. As a position coach, you know, coaching in the league, coaching at Iowa, like what a lot of people don't know is, you know, you work 80 to 100 hours a week and really no days off, especially in season. The college guys really don't have any time. The NFL offseason is better. So you do get like summer off and you get some time off in the offseason. But for me, I just wanted to have more control over my time. And, you know, it's always been about the athlete for me. So as a coach, you know, I would start my meetings off really just educating these guys about life. Like that was the main thing for me. You know, I would tell my players, like, especially rookies, make sure you establish some type of credit history. And while you're in the NFL, you should buy you a house. You know, instead of buying all this other stuff, you should get you some type of assets that's going to grow over time. And, you know, I was always been that type of coach because I know the X's and O's only going to last so long. But, you know, life after football, that's when it get real serious and critical. And, you know, you need these different things, these different foundations. And, you know, I feel like I can help really bridge the gap. I went back to Iowa to get my master's in 2023, and my capstone project was about, you know, why entertainers and athletes, why do they become broke in 3 years or file for bankruptcy? And, you know, that number is 75%. And I feel like in a world full of knowledge, that number should not continue to increase. It should actually decrease. And that's always been my main thing, you know, just really helping the athlete. And the reason why I'm transitioning is I just want to do it more on my terms instead of other people's terms. And so I think I can still, you know, help impact these young athletes and, you know, help them, especially after life of football.
You've got to be the only agent that used to be a coach then, right?
Yeah, it was never a former NFL coach turned NFL agent. You know, I understand the game inside and out, every phase that's go on throughout the season. So it's like with me, you getting the cheat code, to be honest.
So, like, all right, right now we're recording in the middle of September. This is going to get released in the middle of October. So none of the holdouts that you see were happening. Like, from your perspective, and I'm asking about it because as strength coaches, we're always like, hey, you know, if the athlete's holding out, what have they been doing for training? Are they going to be healthy? Da, 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 da. How much of that is stuff that agents are then involved in and trying to bridge the gap with strength coaches? Like, how does that look?
Yeah, for sure. Most of the time when guys are holding out, you know, it's going to be in season, of course. So they usually still work out with the strength and conditioning coach. They usually still come into the office and get their workout in. The main thing is they just don't want to practice, but they find a way to make sure they still taking care of their body. They still running and they still lifting. So, you know, you probably never have a case where an agent would have to really step in as far as on the training, because he typically is just train with the team.
Okay.
Now, for like a Hassan Reddick case, that might be a little different, because I know he's not necessarily with the. I think he's with the Jets right now, and he's still holding out. So I don't even know if he's showing up to the facility. So in that instance, yeah, I would have to make sure that he's still training, or maybe set him up with some of the guys that I know or some of the guys he know. But you want to make sure they still working, especially during the holdout.
So you and we were talking off air about like where athletes are training in off season away from the facility, and part of in the CBA, which it's a public document, you can read it. I read it. It's 450 pages. Like, it's technically 300, but with all the appendixes, I don't know what the proper word is. Anyways, players want to make sure that when they're training hard in the off season, that they're going to be covered. And as a strength coach, like, the reason I'm bringing all of this up is you want to make sure that you're training the athlete hard in the off season so they're prepared physically for the in season so they can stay healthy. The athlete, though, if they're not covered, where if they have a non-football related injury, they're probably not going to want to train very hard. Like, I remember Dame Lillard said something during his offseason. He's like, Coach, I didn't train because I was so petrified of getting hurt that I didn't want to lose my bank, like the money that was coming my way. How real is that? What are some strategies for any of we have listeners that work in private sector, NFL, like, how do we do right by the athlete?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, because by the CBA, if a guy does get hurt in the off season, he comes back and he get put on the non-football injury list. And typically that's like you basically got to miss the first 4 weeks of the season or whatnot. Then eventually, if you get back healthy, then they'll put you back on the roster. But, that's kind of the tough part about it. Because like I said earlier, the salary is not 100% guaranteed. It's up to the discretion of the team if they want to pay you that salary if you get hurt in the offseason. So it has been a couple instances in the past, and I don't necessarily know how those instances played out. But as far as a strength coach, I would just try to, do workouts that aren't as risky, probably not as competitive, like, because, that's how you usually get hurt in some type of competitive type drill. Of course, you want to compete, but, I think you just have to make sure the workouts are structured so that the athlete is safe. Make sure you're doing it on good grass. Something like that can mess you up. Just small things, because I don't think you can. I mean, you can get hurt just walking to the store. So
Yep.
it's some of that stuff is really out of your control. You got to control what you can control. And I think for you and for the other strength coaches, it's just coming up with the best game plan to keep them guys safe.
You need CEUs to keep your certification as a strength and conditioning coach. At Strength Coach Network, both of our long-form education courses come with CEUs to the NSCA, CSCCA, ASCA, and the NCSF. Click the link down below for more information about how our courses can help you keep your certification and you're able to learn from some of the biggest and brightest names in strength and conditioning. Yeah, no, and I mean, because at the end of the day, we're all just trying to make the product better, right? A better football athlete, so that way the game is better. Like, we're all people that played it, and we love it, and we want to see it continue to evolve. And is this, 17, 18 games, like, what are players talking about it from, obviously not naming names, but like, what's the general consensus of how that wear and tear on the body? Is there talk about adding another bye week? Because, we were at Iowa together, and the way the calendar would fall, sometimes we had 2 bye weeks. Like, has that been a consideration that you've heard of?
Yeah, people have been talking for sure. I think 2 bye weeks is something that is really needed.
Same.
Um,
Same.
Typically, what we would do, like we would choose if we had a Thursday night game in the NFL, usually get that whole weekend off, so you get about 4 days off, and that was like a extended mini bye week. So that's how the NFL technically kind of use the bye week right now. Of course, you get a whole bye week where you don't have to show up for the whole week, but I still think it should be mandatory, probably 2 bye weeks, because it is a lot of wear and tear on the body. I mean, these guys are banged up, and we as coaches, we really try to get them through the week most of the time, especially the vets. The older guys, like some guys, they might start off and practice for a couple periods, but then they might be done. They might not finish the whole practice because, like for example, like a JJ Watt, he was older, so it's like, why, practice this guy all week when we need him on Sunday? Like, availability, that's the best ability. So as coaches, we always had the game plan with the trainers the athletic trainers and really just see like who should be getting these reps and who shouldn't be getting these reps. And, that's where the practice squad guys come and play. Practice squad guys, they get to come in and get reps, with the ones sometimes if a starter is not practicing. So now they get to get that speed, they get to learn the system, and then they also get to play the scout team. So I think that's another reason why they increased the practice squad from 10 to 16 players was, to really try to help them guys out.
For you as a position coach, like how often was the strength staff trying to then like work with you? Cause not the word isn't like tell you what to do. We need to work with the sport coach of like, hey, you've got this new player coming in. Maybe they didn't do a lot, but they're a practice player, so they need to get reps. But it's like if you were coming off the couch, now you're getting reps. Like obviously there's a risk of injury, but you were brought here to get reps. How do coaches handle that the best way possible to serve the organization, serve the athlete, and do their job?
Yeah, first off, I just think you need a good relationship with the strength coach. I mean, that really can be a locker room talk on different things that you see as a coach that he needs to get stronger at. For example, a running back, his lower body probably isn't as strong, so he might be lacking that burst or that quickness. And so for me, I'd probably tell the coach, he need to work more on his lower body strength. He's not as quick as I would like him to be, or not as explosive as I would like him to be. I think those conversations, unless it's a serious injury and he's trying to rehab off the injury, or for example, let's just say a player, he does get suspended for taking drugs during the season and he has to miss 4 to 6 weeks. You'll put a game plan together with the strength and conditioning coach, and then whatever coach that he might be working with, like XOs or whatever program he might be working with, and you'll make sure you put a game plan together that he kind of follows. So from a position coach, that's probably more or less what I would come in and I would give them guys some different drills that they can do to make sure the movement is still getting taken care of.
How about any of these like gurus that you see, in the private sector space of, oh, I'm a receivers guy, I'm a quarterbacks guy. Like how often in the off season are you having to communicate with your receivers, your athletes, to be able to then just make sure, because again, why you having that conversation? You have that conversation so when the athlete comes back, they're prepared, they're safe, and they can handle what's being thrown at them.
Yeah, 100%. Typically it's no different than what it was at college at Iowa. You get the guys some stuff to do in the off season, some type of workouts that they should be doing. Most guys they do work with these high rated trainers or whatnot, and a lot of them are good. Because sometimes you can always learn from people, and they work with these guys probably for like a couple months in the off season or whatnot. The main thing for me as a coach, I just want to make sure you're getting some work in. That's kind of up to you on how you want to do the work, but the number one thing that you don't want to do is not work in the off season, because once you get back to training camp, you basically got 3 weeks or 2 weeks now before your first preseason game. And so like it's gonna happen real quick. And for some of them guys, that's the only opportunity they ever have. And so you want to make sure in the off season that you working, you doing whatever you can, but working smart, and that's why, the competitive drills are cool, but I would just, I would just be smart about it. Me personally, I would train, I would run more, I would get in shape, get stronger. But the competitive stuff is how you get hurt more than less. So I would try to veer away from that's a lot of like one-on-ones or things like that.
For any of the guys that, like you said, all right, training camps, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, when you have such a short amount of time as a coach, how much is it weighing on you of, hey, we're trying to make up for lost time versus we like coaches don't really want to win the preseason games, right? Like but at the same time, you're trying to evaluate the roster. How do you manage, hey, we got to go, we got to make up for lost time, we got to get ready for the season, but also respecting, can't ask the guys to do too much too soon. Like, how does all of that work? How do you navigate that?
Yeah, for sure. So as a coach, I would go through the practice reps each day and I would basically label who should take that practice rep.
Oh,
I kind of wouldn't just freelance it and say, you go here, you go there. Now, if somebody was to get hurt, then I'd probably have to operate along those lines. But I think it's more just the pre-practice planning, just making sure guys getting enough reps, if it's a run, if it's a pass, whatever I want to see them do. And usually I put guys in good positions. Like if I got a fast guy and we got a toss sweep, I'm going to let him get that toss sweep. If I got a guy that's great running routes and we have free protection, I'm gonna let him get that route because I know that's what he does best. So I usually want to put things on film that guys do good. As far as like, preseason plan and stuff, that's a conversation you have with the staff based on how many quarters a guy will play or whatever. But the preseason is more or less so that the younger guys can get some film on tape and they can audition for the other 32 teams.
Taking a quick break from the show to talk to you about one of our sponsors, TeamBuildr. TeamBuildr has been my online software platform choice since 2019. Been using it at Towson, using it at Goldfinch, and use it with my online remote clients. You can learn more about them in the link down below. TeamBuildr is also part owner in the Plyomat, which will allow you to get quick, valid, and reliable jump data, jump height, ground contact time, and reactive strength index in just seconds. They are part owner of Plyomat, so you can check them out in the link down below as well. How about when you're ever, you talk about the competitive reps, but when you're in training camp and you have those practices where you're practicing against another team, how do you manage that really well and making sure that your athletes are at the appropriate level of not doing too much, doing too little? Like, how do you turn that dial?
Yeah, for sure. Whenever you go against another team, you're not practicing against yourself. You definitely can expect some things to happen. You just want to make sure that the guys are not necessarily out there just fighting. Like, I get competing, but let's get some work done. Let's be smart. I just never understood fighting with a football helmet on or anything like that. I mean, it's ridiculous.
They usually punch the helmet. That's the worst part.
Yeah, like you play receiver, bro. You need your hands. So it's more or less let's be smart. Let's compete. We still trying to win, but let's not take it overboard. And them guys usually do a good job. That's why they professionals. They understand how to practice. A lot of young people don't necessarily know how to practice, but staying off the ground is a big thing in the NFL. I have seen guys get cut just because they can't stay off the ground. And
really?
They might necessarily run into the quarterback, and you do that one too many times, they're going to send you home. And, it's just a harsh reality of the league.
Dang. Speaking about the league and staying on the ground, with respect to the ground, there's been a lot of conversation, grass, turf. Like, what is your personal opinion on it?
I think everybody knows grass is much better. I mean, even as a coach, when I'm sitting on turf for 2 hours, my back and my knees and, things start aching on me. But when I'm just sitting in the grass, I don't feel as much friction or whatnot. I think it's much safer for the players to use, grass. Of course, grass is harder to keep intact. And so I'm sure that's one of the reasons why some guys are shying away from it. But I never seen a player that loved turf, and been around a lot of them. I just never seen one that would rather practice on turf every day compared to practicing, on grass. Now, playing on turf might be a little different, but I think it more stems from where you practicing that, because you practice more than what you play.
Yep.
So want to make sure you're practicing on some good grass.
And y'all had grass over at Arizona, right?
Yeah, we was lucky to have grass, dry grass, but definitely had some grass.
Speaking about Arizona, I mean, you had some legendary people in that building. What are some of the things that you've learned from, because we've said it before, success leaves clues. What are some of the clues that this successful people have left?
Yeah, I was, fortunate to see Larry Fitzgerald his last couple seasons.
Yep.
And for looking from afar, you wonder why a guy like that never drops the ball. But like you hear it all the time, but it all started at practice. I mean, this guy was 37 years old and he's diving at practice for footballs. Like, insane, right? I just said stay off the ground, right? Like,
yeah, you did.
You old, bro, but that's all he know. All he know is to go hard. I talk about JJ Watt. I used to get up in the morning, we'd be in early, like 5 o'clock. He already working out. And then this is his 13th year in the season, 3-time MVP, defensive MVP. So he really has nothing else to prove, to be honest with you. But after practice, he'll be the last one. He's still getting a whole nother workout after practice. And so just being around guys like that that's put that extra work in, you see why they was great. I also have seen on the flip side, guys get paid and then they lost that hunger that they once had. Yeah. And, that happens a lot, to be honest with you. Like, it really does. But those guys that are great, that's going to the Hall of Fame, they just work every day. It's really that simple. Like, they got it made up in their mind that I'm not going to waste this day. And you can tell just by turning on the practice film and just looking at their day-to-day habits, how they go about their business.
How do you help because regardless, strength coach, sport coach, we work with everybody, and we're trying to help those kids that you just said not do that and be the great athlete. Like, how do you then is it like building the relationship? If it is, how do you go about doing it? Like, how do you speed that process up? Because you don't want to see somebody that you work with, which is somebody that you care about, you don't want to see them struggle. That's never fun.
Exactly. So, like for me being a young coach, I was 26 when I was coaching with the New York Giants. So
Is
I
that
was
good or bad
more,
for you when you were that age?
yeah. I was 26.
No, was it like good that you were that close in age to them, or
Oh,
was it like, oh, I had to be more of a hardo so that way they knew that I wasn't their friend? Like what?
it was a mixture of both. When guys opened up to me, I would listen, but I wouldn't necessarily take their side when I give them their response. Why coach not playing me? Well, you need to do this better, or let's do this. I wouldn't necessarily say, well, yeah, coach tripping. I don't know. Them guys looked at me as somebody they can lean on and talk to. So I can just tell, like, if for example, when I went to Cardinals and it's a backup running back that's not playing, I can just look at his face, his whole energy of the meeting, and I know he's pissed because he's not playing. But that's what I would step in and just like, you need to keep working because the opportunity will come. This is a long season. And if you keep showing up and you keep wasting these days, when the opportunity comes, you won't be ready to capitalize. And so for me, it was more or less building that relationship that they knew that, everything I was saying was real. It wasn't fake. These guys got a lot going on, and, a lot of people talking to them and lying to them. But
Hmm.
I feel like people can understand when it's genuine and when it's not, man. I feel like that was my role as a young coach, was to really keep these guys' mind in the game. Most of these guys used to being a starter their whole life, so they don't necessarily know what it feels like or how to even sit on the bench and be a good team player because
Hmm.
it's new to them. But that was kind of my role. I would say was to help uplift and motivate the guys to keep them going.
That's an excellent point that you said about. I mean, we talked about it in college. Like, if a guy comes from high school to college, we'd be like, hey, chances are this is going to be the first time you're told that wasn't good enough. You got to do it again, and that's going to be difficult. But to have it happen again at the next level, like does it have to be said a different way? Can you be more like, how does that work? Taking a quick break from the show to talk to you about one of our sponsors, Hawkin Dynamics. I've had Hawkin Dynamics for multiple years, dating back to my time at Towson, and still utilize them here at Goldfinch when I'm training athletes in Iowa. Hawkin Dynamics makes it simple to be able to get input to find out what's going on underneath the hood with your athletes. Whether it's lower body assessment, upper body assessments, you want reliable data to find out how the athlete is putting force into the ground so you can be able to accurately return an athlete from an injury, and you can also find out how the athlete is producing force to check how your training is working. Check out Hawkin Dynamics in the link down below.
Yeah, well, first off, I say, did nobody make you sign up for this? So,
That's
you
fantastic.
know what I'm saying? So if you're gonna be in the building, you might as well work. Like, don't waste your time. At the end of the day, you're still getting paid to practice.
Correct.
So it's not a bad thing. You could be at home like a lot of your other friends that wish they was in your position. So I really just try to give some reality to these guys because yeah, it might be suck while you're going through it, but you still are an NFL player on an active roster. Like, I mean, it's a small percent of people that ever get the opportunity. So, let's cash in. And like, we always, even at Iowa, we preach next man in. It's the same thing in the NFL. Guys get hurt 20, like they get hurt all the time. That's part of the game. But the guys that are ready, the guys that is like, if you're on practice squad, you should be studying your playbook still. You shouldn't just be on practice squad just to take reps at practice, for the scout team. Still learn the playbook because you one injury away from being that next guy up. And you got to know the system. It's, in the NFL, it's all about productivity. They don't care if this was your first day on the job, if it was a couple weeks on the job. And so you just want to make sure that you learn in that playbook. For example, like sometimes you might sign a new player, that Monday, which just happened to me. It was crazy. Though. We signed Kenyon Drake. We signed another guy. Signed like 3 running backs, and I had to train and get them guys caught up within 1 week. And we had a Thursday night football game. So I got to teach 3 guys a new playbook per se. Now, luckily, when you game planning, it's not as big as what a training camp playbook would be, but it's just the ability to retain that information. That was my job to stay with the guys and teach them and just make sure they be ready for game day. So The NFL life is tough. Like it's real tough. People see the starters and how much money these big time players are making, but most guys not making that type of money. And most guys really they're just trying to make it. It's tough. Guys get cut and they have to go to this team and that team. So it's definitely not a life for everyone. I can't say that.
You talked about learning the system, and that's something that like strength coaches have been kind of trying to educate kids, athletes, whatever. Like, it's not just about being bigger, faster, stronger. Like, you have to understand your playbook because at the end of the day, you're exercising to be better at football.
Right.
What's the best way us strength coaches can help drive that message home to help support sport coaches?
Yeah. You know, I really think if you guys just keep encouraging them guys, telling them that really the number one way to make a roster, to be honest with you, is if you got some type of accountability about yourself and that coach can trust you. If he can trust you, he'll find a way to try to put you in the game. And the only way he'll be able to trust you is based off, how you study that playbook. Like how in tuned are you is can you play multiple positions? Can you do multiple things? You want to get a guy that's versatile. If I got a receiver that can play inside and outside, now he done added more value to the team. If I got a running back that can catch it and he can run it, now he can add more value to the team. So as strength coach, that's keep encouraging them guys to keep increasing things that are out of their control and keep learning and just don't settle for just one thing. Get better. If you're a pass rusher, learn how to, do better against the run. So, just giving these guys different movements to help them be successful in their position, I would think would help a lot.
Building off of that about being able to do more, one of the things that Yonda said when he'd come back and train was to get into the league, you have to be able to do a lot of things. Like, yeah, all those things. He goes, but to get paid, you got to be great at one of them.
There you go.
Where does that switch come in, and how important is the weight room in that? Or is it just truly learning the playbook and then being so great on Saturday or Sunday?
Well, no, the weight room is critical. Like it's very critical because if you got that strength, you're gonna play with confidence. And you got to be a confident player to be a great player. Like I've never seen a great player that wasn't confident. So that's why I really think you guys come players that's really building them guys confident in the mindset to just overcome things when things get tough. That's the main thing that I would say, man, is just keep encouraging them guys to, keep pushing themselves. And I think those type of workouts that you put guys through would necessarily, it'll help them overcome some of the tough things, that may happen throughout the season or whatnot. Now, the playbook is critical, like it's very critical, but I think football is mental, is physical strength, and then it's really just executing. Like if you got to execute more than you don't mess up, you're gonna have a good shot of getting paid and getting everything you ever desired. But you have to execute, and you just don't execute on Sunday. You execute the off season, the week before, the day before. Your strength and conditioning, how you studying the playbook, how you eating, how you taking care of your body. All those things play a part into it.
And within all those different realms, like you said, there's lots of voices that these athletes nowadays, doesn't matter how old they are, right? Like you got young kids that are there's a lot of voices. And as you said, if you're genuine and you're real and you care, the athletes will know. My question to you is, with all these different voices, and sometimes people are just lying to these kids.
Oh yeah, straight up.
It's harder when, if you're telling them the truth, it might not be the sexy thing that sells, but so it's harder to get their attention at first because you're not saying the catchy thing, but it does eventually help you out because people start to realize that you're not lying to them. Is
There
that
you go.
correct?
I love it. I'm not gonna talk about this player. I'm not gonna say his name, but I had a guy that was a rookie, and I used to be with the returners, and I can just tell his whole life he never had a coach get on him, because he was the man. He was the man in college, he was the man in high school. Nobody ever had to tell him to do anything. And, he ended up dropping a punt while we had practice. And I got on him like, come on, what we doing? He said something back. When I said something back to him, coach player type thing, that happened all the time. But I really feel like I was like one of the first people to really get on him. And then ironically, what happened is that next game, he ended up dropping the ball at the exact same spot inside the 20. And we ended up losing the game. You're not going to really win a game in NFL if you drop a punt inside the 20 because the team either going to score a touchdown or a field goal. I mean, they already right by the end zone. But I feel like that moment kind of taught him that, yeah, Coach Shump is actually, he's here for me. If I would have just never said nothing and just let him just drop the ball as if everything was okay, I'm doing him a disservice. And for me, I never had a tough time having those tough conversations with people, because I am who I am, and I coach just so I can see you be successful. Like that's what makes me happy is you maximizing your potential or whatnot. But you definitely have different instances where some guys not trying to hear it at first, but if you keep telling them, life will happen and they'll see the exact reason why you was telling them that. So, and I
Jeez.
think really as a position coach, it's always tough because just think about it. The guys that you playing, they probably will like you more. The guys that's not playing, I mean, they gonna think you the biggest dick in the world. Like that's just the reality of it, bro. Like guys, they hate you because you're not playing them, but some of that stuff be out of your control as a coach, and I got a tough spirit, so that stuff never really bothers me. But I also feel like that's another reason why I came to the agent side because I just feel like I can have a bigger outreach than just the guys that's actually in my room that's starting because those are the only ones that's really gonna pay attention. Like I mean, let's just be real.
How much of it as a position coach are you having to then like counterbalance the other position coaches or the coordinator where like you said, okay, maybe you Shump wanted to be a certain way, but because of the system that you were in, like your personality had to change so
Mhm.
you could adapt the system. And now you can truly just be you because you are, your own agent and you can just represent different players. Taking a quick break from the show to talk to you about one of our sponsors, Vitruve VBT. With Vitruve, you can accurately measure what speeds your athletes are moving the bar. No longer do you have to program simply based on sets and reps. You can program for your more mature athletes based on the velocities that they are hitting. You can accurately measure at a great price with Vitruve, and you can have this integrate with your TeamBuildr, making it simple so you no longer have to write down the recorded reps from other devices. Everything in one place with Vitruve VBT. Check them out in the link down below.
All the time, definitely got to do whatever the head coach thinks or whoever the offensive coordinator is. So you might be used to running a route at 10 yards, but they want this route ran exactly at 12 yards. They want this route to convert versus cover two, but you used to this route only converting versus two man. It'd be different things that as a coach I have to tweak just based off, the guy that's running the system or whatnot. But just transitioning to the agent side, I really feel like, I can do things the way I see fit, really help guys and be like a mentor to guys, giving these guys these conversations that I know most people not talking to them about. Because most people praising you as a professional athlete. Like
Yep.
nobody really keeping it real with you. You got a bunch of yes mans and those are dangerous. You don't want a bunch of yes men. You actually want somebody that's gonna, tell you the truth so you can look in the mirror and make some changes.
One of the things that I wrote down when you were talking about that was whether it be routes, whatever it is, and the fact that there's going to be subtle differences again, whether it's man, zone, they want it at 10, they want it at 8, hey, the safety's pressing or the corner when they exchange and cover 2, whatever. Those things, how important is it as the strength coach to be in the room when you all are discussing it, whether we have input or not, or what, like just being in the room, does it show that we care more, that we have value? Um, and does it then allow us to incorporate better drills in the off season to help you all do what you're doing?
I 100% agree. I do think that strength coaches, they should be present in some of those meetings. Especially in college, you spend most of your time with the strength and conditioning coaches. You want to make sure you have some drills that translate over to the field. That's what it's all about. I'm sure as strength and conditioning coaches, you just don't do things that you think or you see cool or you see fit. You're doing things that you know are going to translate on Saturday or Sunday, depending on what level you're on. And I think if you get some type of understanding, then I think you can tweak your drills a little bit just based off the certain movements that the coordinators are asking for. And I think that can really be beneficial to a player in the strength and conditioning coach relationship.
I personally agree. I'm biased with that. So any of our listeners out there, like I think you even not for nothing, it's just the fact that like they see you in the meeting and they're like, oh, word, like they're
Right.
they're kind of with us for lack of a better term. So like if you have that ability to, I think it's something that is valuable to do to build up that leadership capital or that equity with the staffs.
I agree. And I think it can it can serve you too, because I mean, you still learning, and
Correct.
it's never a bad thing to learn. You always want to learn. So, like even for me, like when I was just watching the strength and conditioning coaches and how they would try to train the athletes as far as like warming them up, I was still a couple warm ups because I'm like, I need this for myself, So I'm forever learning. Like if it might be a stretch band warm up or whatever that may be. So I really think it works both ways, to be honest with you.
Now, you talked about understanding assets, understanding finances, NIL. How much of an impact does that have on you now as an agent? In like, what does that look like, and how what does a strength coach do to help the athlete out now in the world that they're living in?
Yeah, NIL is it's forever changing. For me, I think it's best for me to get my financial education to these guys at an earlier age. They starting to make money now at an earlier age. Most guys in college wouldn't get paid until they got to the NFL or whatnot. And now some of these guys might be making money at 18 or 19. I think the chances of them blowing that money is even higher now than when you 22 or 23. So as an agent, I think it's my job to really instruct them, to really teach them about building credit. Like number one, I think that should be the first thing you do as an 18-year-old. I think you should go and get you a college, like a bank credit card, a college credit card, and use it like cash. Like for example, if you had to put gas in your car, use that credit card, $40, pay that $40 off by the end of the month, and now you're starting to build that type of history. You don't want to wait until you graduate college and then you get out the NFL and all of a sudden my credit score is still 500 because I never got no history. But these guys only know what they know, and so for me, I think it'll be more or less just giving these guys this financial education, so they can have a better understanding of what's an asset and what's a liability. I just think about a guy that I coach, man. He played for the Chiefs and won a couple Super Bowls. And dude had 4 cars, no house. I said, bro, when are you going to buy you a house? Like I get the cars are nice, but when you gonna buy you a house? When I say a house, you don't need a big house. It can be a 3 bedroom, 2,000 square feet. And if you move out, you can just make it a rental property. Like, but you want to make sure you got some type of asset in your name. But little did he know that next year, he ended up getting cut. And so now you ain't making the money you was making. So now you can't even really qualify to get a house, you know. And so just really just being that, especially with a lot of guys, that come from inner cities and really just don't got this type of education. I think it's going to be, prevalent for me to make sure that I'm telling these guys like what they need to be doing at a young age to help them be successful, after football.
Sounds like you're going to apply the same stuff about, the guy that muffed the punt. You're going to do that same mentorship process. It's just now in a slightly different avenue.
There you go. Definitely in a slightly different avenue. I still get to be a mentor as far as, like what's going on with the X's and O's and, how to handle different coaches and how the season goes and how the off season plays out. But now I think I get a better opportunity to really just start educating these guys, putting the information in front of them that they can read so they can really start understanding, how to spend money, how to make money, and how not to really blow the money because I really feel like the athletes, they should be over their own money, but you can't be over something that you don't understand. And so I think it's real critical just to, put different books and different information in front of them to start teaching them different things. And safe investments, that's the number one thing. Like you don't want to do anything crazy, mutual funds, S&P 500, Roth IRAs, whatever it may be. Let's go do safe stuff starting off. You want to make sure that your money always working for itself. So for me, I think, I can really help these guys. I graduated in 2014 before NIL. So, I left college broke and I had to figure it out, bro. Like, and, 10 plus years being a professional with 7 years working in the NFL, I just got some type of experience under my belt that I think can really, really help these athletes, especially, the guys, that come from backgrounds where this type of stuff is not being taught.
Taking a quick break from the show to talk to you about one of our sponsors, Sleep Me. Sleep Me are the makers of the Chili Pad, which has been my bed cooling device since 2020. Chili Pad will allow you to sleep and not wake up hot anymore. This was something that I had to worry about. I used to have the air conditioning down way too low. Now, I don't have to have the air conditioning as low because my Chili Pad, my Dock Pro, keeps my bed cold at night. Check out Sleep Me, check out the Chili Pad, check out the Dock Pro in the link down below. Amen to that. And you talked about safe investments. Some people would be like, Shump, houses are not safe. How do you feel confident doing that? Like, no, but you've talked about and shared it on social media. Like, how did you get into that? Because it does terrify some athletes and some just strength coaches too.
No, 100%. It can be risky. You know, any investment is risky.
Fair.
But I just give you an example. Let's go back to the 2008 housing crisis. Everything went down. Everybody was selling. Let's think about the people that held on to their house. Let's just say the house was worth $100,000 back in 2008. You fast forward to 2024, I promise you that house is worth $400,000. And they probably have $300,000 in equity just sitting in their house. The thing about real estate is over time, it is going to grow. Like, that's a fact. People will always need somewhere to live. That's a fact. Right now, we have like some type of housing crisis because we don't have enough houses for all these people that's looking for houses. Plus, it's unaffordable because, you know, after the pandemic, the prices just went crazy. But let's think about it like this. It's different programs out there where you actually don't even need any money to buy a house, where they got down payment programs and you probably just got to pay for the closing costs. You're only putting down 3%, 3.5% on an FHA loan. So on a $100,000 house, you're putting down $3,500 to own a $100,000 asset. Where else in America can you do that? If I had to look, if I wanted a $100,000 stock, I would have to put $100,000 into that stock to get that stock. So yeah, it's risky, but do your homework. Like, the number one thing about real estate is location. If you put it in the great location and you make sure that the comps around or it's selling at the right price and all them good things, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. History say that real estate will grow over time. So 90% of millionaires got their wealth from real estate. And you know, real estate is just something that'll forever grow. I think it's a safe investment. Like I gave you the 2008, you know, example, just so you can see how, like, yeah, everybody was saying, oh, about real estate, oh, it's crashing. But the people that held on, they got a lot of money.
Or even the people that had the ability to buy, like, now look what they got.
Oh my God. Like, you want to buy when things go down. So
it's like when they go on sale. That's what, I mean, that's what Warren Buffett says. Like, you buy, like, fearful when others are greedy, greedy when others are fearful. And like, it's that, you know, if my wife wanted to go buy some, a purse or something and it was on sale, she'd be like, oh, it's a good deal. But if it happens something elsewise, it can be a little bit, it's different.
Exactly. So that's, I mean, but I think really with these guys, what probably scare them, they hear these crazy stories and
true,
you know, or people maybe stole their money or whatever it may be. But putting your money into real estate would never be a bad thing, as long as you're not looking for a quick cash out. Like, you know, most people get into real estate because they think they're gonna get rich all of a sudden. Maybe before, you know, the pandemic, you had a better opportunity to cash flow on properties, and you can flip properties because people was bypassing the inspections and they really didn't care because the market was just so crazy there. But I just think it's something that you can never go wrong with, because over time it says that you at least gonna grow 10% like year over year over time. You know, like, and even if prices go down, they go back up over time. So I just think it's never. I don't think.
How in the world did you have the time to study all of that with everything else that you were doing?
Oh my God, how about that, right? So yeah, let's talk about that.
Like, how?
Hey, so look, man, I got a pretty like crazy schedule, to be honest with you. When I was a graduate, I really started studying this in 2015. So this is when I first started coaching high school football.
Yeah.
So I actually had a lot of time coaching high school football. I was an in-school suspension teacher, so I would just be sitting in my ISS room and I'm just reading books left and right and listening to podcasts 24/7. And I did that for like a year or two straight. And then once I got to become like a graduate assistant coach at Iowa, I would still study, and just I didn't have a lot of time because I was still going to class. I was coaching, coaching a lot of hours, but I would make sure that I would at least listen to podcasts while I'm breaking down film.
Yep.
I'm watching film all night. Let me listen to some podcasts.
Yeah, you don't need to listen to the announcers. You're just like, hey, I'm gonna get it done.
Exactly. So I would make sure that I would study. I always been about like self education. And then, once I started working in the NFL, I was fortunate enough that, I made enough money that I could buy a house. I already had some credit history built that I could buy a house. And so it kind of just worked out for me. But, just always doing some type of self-development. That's the main thing. You got to find time to have some type of self-development. I think everybody does. A lot of people just don't have this knowledge, so they don't know how to apply it.
Yeah.
But me, I always been a knowledge seeking, driven dude. I don't mind reading. I don't mind studying. I don't mind listening to podcasts and things of that nature. So it was tough, because I was even working in the NFL, and I got deals that I got, real estate deals that I got to do, and I got to get ready for a meeting. Hey,
You're like, hold on one sec. I
right.
gotta take this call. My contractor's calling.
Exactly, man. So I mean, it was tough, but you find a way to make it work. For me, I never been the guy to put all my eggs in one basket. I always want to have multiple streams. I never just want to depend on one thing.
So now you're gonna essentially you're gonna find a way. Like, how do you then respect that? All right, you made these mistakes, not mistakes, but you learned, and how can you expedite that process for the people that you work with? And it again, it's going to put you in a unique position, but it's going to come with its own challenges of trying to now you establish that trust with new clients, and then how are you going to then handle new clients versus experienced clients, same way that you had like a new versus a veteran player? Taking a quick break from the show to talk to you about one of our sponsors, Powerlift. Powerlift is located here in Iowa in the United States of America. I've utilized them back in 2011 when I had them at Harvard. I also had them at the University of Maryland, and then finally when I was at the University of Iowa. Their equipment is strong, it is durable, it is dependable. It's also customizable based upon whatever your needs are at your school. Check out Powerlift at the link down below.
Yeah, for sure. I really think if I can give these guys some of my experiences, things that I might have messed up on over the years. Like me, I'm a risky person. Some people ain't. So I don't mind taking a risk. And if I lose something, it's not gonna necessarily affect me like the average person. But what I have learned is over time is you want to go with safe investments. Like you don't want to go with risky investments. Unless you're just trying to get something within a year or whatnot, but it's more or less just going with just the safer investments, so you don't have to have a crazy worry if this doesn't work out. I mean, the S&P 500 over the last 20 years, it probably didn't gave back like 10%, around 10%. Just mutual funds, safe ETLs, whatever it may be. I'd rather throw my money in those type of things. And for example, like real estate, owning a house, if the house costs 300,000, your down payment for 3% gonna be a little bit over 12,000. That's not a lot of money for some of these guys, that's making a lot of money or whatnot. But I just feel like they think housing. I feel like the general public think housing costs so much that I wouldn't qualify. But I think if if you could find a way to put some money aside and save, that you would figure it out. But as far as like new clients, old clients, I think it's all about the relationship at the end of the day. Just building a relationship, kind of seeing where these guys might be lacking it just from talking to them, and trying to provide some assistance so they can learn things that they don't know, and so they won't continue to make the same mistakes these other athletes are making. Because like I said, 75% of guys are going broke, and the more that I studied the CBA from passing the agent exam.
Yeah.
And I started to talk about, and I looked at the benefits section and what they getting paid after retirement. Definitely not getting paid a lot of money.
Really?
I would say a guy with one credited season, he probably making a little bit over, let's just say 2,000 per credited season. Which I mean, it could be somewhat a good money for guys, but guys was used minimum. They was used to making 45,000.
Hold on, a month or a year? What like number wise? Just
say it again now.
So they make $2,000 a month or a year?
So it was like, let's just say if you play, like 3 credited seasons, and they basically pay you per credited season. So credited season being in for NFL game for 3 games throughout the year.
Yep.
Let's just say on average, you might make 2,000 per credited season. So you're thinking about $6,000 give or take for a guy that played like 3 years,
Yeah.
which that's okay money, but from a guy that was making 45,000 bi-weekly to a guy that's now making 6,000 per month,
Ooh, yeah.
you do the math.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big difference. You're not really taken care of in retirement. Like, so that's why you got to make sure that you're taking care of your money, as you plan. They got different things like annuity programs where they'll pay you, 1 year after retirement, but it's like a one-time payment. And basically, if you play less than 3 years, you're only getting $5,000. If you play more than 4 or 5 years, you might get like around $100,000. But like I said, it's a one-time check.
Yep.
So you're not necessarily getting the money you was making as a player. It's just gonna be hard for you to ever make that type of money again. And that'd be the main thing I used to tell my players. Like, I mean, unless you start a successful business, you probably ain't gonna never make this much money again. Like, corporate America, trust me, they don't pay a lot of money. Like, I mean, unless you're a doctor or something, but it's just it's just the reality of it. So
how can strength coaches then help get athletes to understand, like, hey, tighten up, take advantage of this opportunity? Like, is it giving them those education? Is it like telling them that sobering fact about the 75%? Like,
yeah,
or what do the 25% do to stay successful on the flip side?
Exactly. That's what I would do. I would really give these guys resources. I know I used to always ask different strength and conditioning coaches because I know you guys read a lot.
Yep.
You guys love information. Like, what's some good books out there? Maybe you could tell a guy that you're training, maybe you should read this. I think this can help you out, or maybe you should check out this podcast. Sometimes listening to a 30-minute podcast might change a guy's life. So really just giving these guys different resources, that's gonna help them out when it's all said and done, because they need it from everybody. It's not just the position coach, the agent, the strength coach. I really feel like they need to hear it from different people that's actually successful in what they're doing.
Amen to that. Well, we want to respect your time. I greatly appreciate being able to learn from you, Shump. I'm going to be rooting from you from afar. And let me know anytime you come back to Iowa, man.
Yeah, I got you, man. I appreciate it. This was good.
Thank you.